Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on this gorgeous Sunday afternoon on Gulfstream today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Ron Nicoletti to tackle this 12-race program. It was a big day yesterday as well, and not really a formful sequence in the pick six. I really did think that we were going to have some live singles going into the final leg. Wasn't the case, though, and once again, we do have a big carryover for today's card.
Yeah, over $2.5 million to start the day, and you're right. Yesterday, Weber had the 6 out of 6, which we tell you all the time. Even the consolations play great. It was over $38,000. So you got 6 of 6. You didn't get the whole jackpot, but you got $38,000. So only a 20-cent wager.
And we saw some very solid performances there. Grand Tito, I thought, was very solid as well. And we also saw the turf be very kind to speed. And we haven't really had any moisture or any rain throughout the past 24 hours here. So that's something to definitely take note of as you're going through the sequence today.
Yeah, we had a course record yesterday set by a horse that was on the front end, Davida. So why not? We got to change your handicap it a little bit until we're told differently. Now, what I mean by that, we got to see horses coming from off the base. They didn't have much of a shot yesterday.
They did not. We'll take a look at our featured wagers and our carryovers today, and we have a nice carryover to start it all off in race 1. That rolling super high 5, just shy of $4,500 in that rolling super high 5. Race 1 also kicks off the 50-cent early pick 5 as we get into the latter half of the card. Race 7 starts the 20-cent Rainbow 6. $2.5 million in that carryover today. And of course, race 8 does kick off our 50-cent late pick 5 as well. So we'll dive right into the action. Have a lot of ground to cover, a lot to talk about as well. Race 1 starts us all off, an open $16,000 event, a mile on the turf course. And you'd think right now we have early money, but the 8 Great Cross figures to get a little bit of play here for Peter Walder and the Javier Castellano factor.
Yeah, I had to use him on my pick 5 ticket just in case because it's such good connection. Javier Castellano will show you that ticket right now. I went 4, 6, 8 in here, and you see the progression 3, then 3, and 3. But you see in race number 4, I singled my best bet today, and that's Pink Poppy. Had a lot of trouble in the Sunshine a Millions filly and mare turf. We're going to show you a replay of that race. I just thought off that performance, I wanted to get a single in there today because I wasn't too sure in those other races and wanted to go 3 deep. And so there's my ticket, $40.50.
That's a good strategy to use several horses kind of in the first 3 legs of the sequence and keying off of Pink Poppy. She does seem to be the horse to beat. But the 8 Great Cross, we'll talk about this horse a little bit here. And she does have the back credentials in order to really win this race. Now, she was obviously trained at one point by Mike Maker, and now coming into the Peter Walder barn, she has some races that would make her very competitive. That said, we haven't seen her for a few weeks. She was competing against Allowance Optional Claiming Company and Protected. Now we see her in for the $16,000 tag, and a shocking statistic for the new connection.
Yeah, this statistic, excuse me, you'll see it right here. Peter Walder, over the last 5 years, he's 2 for 20, only 10% with a 35-cent ROI. First trainer switch on the turf past 5 years. That's not the main track. That is on the turf.
He does extremely well with his acquisitions from either synthetic or on the main track as well, but turf is kind of not a strong suit. So you're left trying to find other options, and perhaps the 4 Ladies Lunar Luck is a viable option. She was the beaten favorite last time out of a dream trip, but she does have a lot of consistency.
Yeah, she defeated a notch tougher at the distance back on December 18th. She's stretching out after rallying that race you were talking about. Third against this caliber competition, going 7.5 furlongs. Gustavo Delgado, Luis Saez in the saddle today. On paper, it looked like this was the one to beat when I handicapped this race.
The 3 Starship Jody was one that if she gets to her back numbers, I thought she could be competitive when she stepped up to the open $20,000 condition against Ladies Lunar Luck. She was beaten against that field, but she was extremely wide going into the final turn. Now posted to the inside. I think if she gets a ground-saving trip going back to a more preferred surface, she could be quite tough in here as well. We'll move on to the second race, the 6,250 conditional claimer, a mile out onto the main track, and the 8 Starship Galaxy. big, it looks to be the horse to beat here. Did actually get the non-winners of 2 lifetime condition last time out and has to, I think, go against tougher company today.
Yeah, she had that 3-length lead last time out, and she ended up winning it by a diminishing half length there. And off that performance, I still thought off that I'd give her one more chance to see if she can notch another victory in here. But the horse you have on top, number 7, Wild Girl, I guess it is, I think belongs on the ticket.
Yes, I think the mile distance should be a little bit more suitable. You look at her race behind Elnoth and Samus, 2 starts back, she was pulled up and walked off, and last time out, she just didn't show a lot of speed. I just hope that Julian gets her into the, you can't, sometimes your hand is forced with horses that don't have any natural speed, but I do hope that maybe with a ground-saving trip and getting her into the game a little bit sooner, that could help her. She had shown a tendency to be not too far off the pace at sprint distances, so hopefully she can be a little bit closer too. I think we're grasping at straws a little bit past the 8 Starship Galaxy. I just don't like horses who just won against non-winners of 2, now coming back facing tougher company.
Right.
I think it might make her a little bit vulnerable, but obviously you do too, because you didn't single her in the pick 5.
No, I did not, and that's the biggest jump. People don't realize that when they go from 2 lifetime up to the next level, whatever that may be. It's a big jump for some horses. Of course, they've been mired in 2 lifetime condition most of the time. Even if they just broke their maiden, going up to the next condition, it's tough.
Okay, we'll move on to the 3rd race, a nice maiden special weight, 7.5 furlongs, onto the turf course. And I thought this race, you could have gone in multiple different directions. Julian on the 10, love the kitten for trainer Wesley Ward.
Yeah, this one is making a usually fruitful 3rd start back from a layoff after angling out to finish 3rd, a recent outing at this level and distance. It's a daughter of Kitten's Joy, half to a multiple stakes winner called Empire Builder, boasts a really solid 5-furlong drill over the Palm Meadows turf, preparation for the 3rd start off the bench. But let's see how this race shape is going to. This is our first turf race of the afternoon. We're going to see how things play in this race. You're going to watch them.
They could get aggressive from that outside post position. I kind of don't see a whole lot of options there. She does have a lot of natural speed, and she could get into position well early. The 2 Lake Turkana, I think, is well posted to the inside. This is another one who has a lot of speed, and perhaps, you know, the mile distance. They've tried this filly at different distances, whether it be 5.5 furlongs, 6 furlongs, then stretching out to the 2-turn mile last time out at Gulfstream. And it was an okay performance. I can't really fault it by any means. She had no excuses in that race, but I do think she's one that will prefer this kind of tricky middle distance, a 7.5, because she has speed. She hasn't really shown it last time out. She's just kind of an interesting horse, well posted, that I think could move up off of her last race.
And, you know, she definitely figures in this race. And, you know, what about the number 5, just talking, a full sister to Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint 2nd place finisher, Lady Shipman, is making a career debut. Chad Brown, Javier Castellano. If she runs like her sister, we're in big trouble here.
Big trouble. You don't know what to do with horses like this, because they're probably going to be well bet, given the pedigree, given the connections with Chad Brown and Javier Castellano, and you know, it makes them have to fill big shoes. Will we see a performance that's a very good? I don't know. The work tab has been okay. The turf workouts have been okay too, and I think one that you have to respect in those multi-race sequences. We'll move on to the 4th race, a nice allowance race, 7.5 furlongs onto the turf course, and your best bet of the day, the 3 Pink Poppy. We'll go back and take a look at her performance in the Sunshine Millions filly and mare turf.
Yeah, you know, we're going to show you at the 5/8 pole where she really had a steady Sharply, but this is the 2nd time she had a Sharply. The first time wasn't as bad. When we roll this, you'll see she just, you know, had a bad trip in that race, and then she got stuck behind a wall of horses at the quarter pole and never really got a chance to run. You'll see it when they come around, and I just thought she was bogged down on the inside. She finally gets, as they turn for home, she gets room on the inside. She closes. She doesn't have that final kick, and I just thought off all that trouble in there that this horse would run well. Here's where she's getting bogged in at the quarter pole on the inside. Really, she's got to sort of steady again. You know, never gets that clean run where she can go in and do okay. And as I say, she's looking for room. This horse is going to back. She's slight steady again. I just thought She was uncomfortable in there. When she gets a shot, she ducks to the rail and tries to make a game of it. She finishes third. So off that performance, I'm going to make her my best bet.
I thought it was why they took her off the pace there, because she does have a lot of speed. I thought she saved ground to the inside. She checked a little bit on the backside. But here is where I was a little bit discouraged, because she did have full room to run and really kick on from there. You could argue that perhaps the eventual winner of the race had a bit more momentum. It wasn't a bad performance against Tougher, but she did have an opening to run on from the inside.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only part I was a little concerned with, but I just thought against this level of competition today, I thought maybe this would be the right one with a clean trip. She's going to run well, and I like the fact that she might have the tactical speed to be up closer to the pace this afternoon.
She does. The two Love and Marriage down on the inside, coming in off of a layoff for trainer Chad Brown. Javier Castellano hops back aboard. He was aboard the Victory against Two Other Than Company last time out, and she has actually, I think she's sneaky good, because she has that stalking speed that she can really be well positioned early. And look at the competition. She is coming into the field with a lot of consistency on form, and she has been competitive against tough company like Hope Cross. We obviously see Hope Cross pretty decent filly as well. So I think the class lines are there. Yes, she'll probably have to take a little bit of a step forward in order to beat Pink Poppy, but I think she definitely could do it. She has a lot of upside here. The one ticking Katie, though, what do you do with this filly? Last time out, she did show speed on a yielding course against Grade 2 Company. You have to kind of work off of her debut, her United States debut back at Belmont back in June, and she's capable of very good performances. However, is she a horse that kind of likes a little bit more moisture in the course?
Yeah, I would think so. And, you know, it's a really ambitious campaign she had since arriving from Great Britain. As you mentioned, she defeated $80,000 option claimers, was yielding at Belmont. Then she went on and, you know, she stalked the pace, faded to finish in the Grade 2 Canadian last out, the Delarose at the Spa, at Saratoga during the summer. So she's been knocking heads with some tough campaigners. We'll see if she can handle the turf course that is definitely firm today.
We'll look at the fifth race on the card, 6,259 winners at 2 lifetime conditions, 6 furlongs on the main track. And I think you have to handicap this race by process of elimination, I should say, because we have the 2 Boss Hog, who is taking a considerable drop in class, a claim that hasn't necessarily panned out. We have the 3 Clear Status, who should be decently bet for trainer Mike Trombetta. First off the claim, you opt for this horse here as your top pick.
Yeah, move to the Mike Trombetta barn via that claiming wheels back at the same level and distance. Looking to rebound from a slow starting third place finish last time out. The new connections, keep the status quo. They got Luis Saez back in the saddle today. And I think this horse with a sharper break, it's a wide open affair. I think this one has a shot to be maybe win it or certainly be on the ticket.
And for what it's worth, though, we'll show a stat here, because this is a race that you have to use several horses in. Mike Trombetta, first off the claim, he's 3 for 16, 19%. He finishes in the money a significant amount of time, almost 70%, but they still kind of have a tendency to underperform. It's a negative ROI, and he's 0 for 2 with these claims at Gulfstream. So, again, a very small sample size, at least locally, but something to take note of. This is a horse that I think you use to protect yourself in the pick 5 as well. Last time out was the beaten favorite. I thought had full opportunity to win. That's just why I go in a different direction with the 7 Jack Fallon. Last time out, this was the first time that this horse was dropping down to similar levels to this 6,250 level. Prior to that, he was competing against slightly tougher. He has a little bit of back class to work off of, and he came off a significant layoff 3 starts back. I just thought he got off to kind of an awkward start last time out, and if he breaks cleaner against this field, he very well could turn the table.
Yeah, he ducked out at the start. He finished, third behind Clear Status. That was back on January 29th. So we'll see the rematch, what happens. I've used it on my ticket, too.
The 6 El Gran Gallego is one you use too, and he comes in with a pair of seconds in his past 2 starts, and this is another one that you have to kind of throw into the pot.
Yeah, I don't usually pay a lot of attention to weight, but this one picks up 7 pounds, carry 121 pounds after a pair of second-place finishes against this familiar competition while toting 114 pounds, including apprentice John Cruz. So horse is going to carry more weight. I don't know how much that figures in, but I thought I had to note that.
the 5 Caribbean Spirit, kind of low profile connections, but this is a horse who he really hasn't done much running in the past couple of starts, but they have been against considerable better horses. Open $20,000 claimers, open 12,500 claimers, and now facing this non-winners of 2 condition, so it could be very tough and low profile, but these are the types of horses that maybe can hit the board at a nice price.
Well, when you're putting your early pick 5 ticket together, this is where if you have a chance, if you agree with me with Pink Poppy or somewhere else and you could single a couple of horses, I think you go deep in this race.
Okay, race 6 on the card, a maiden special weight 7 furlongs onto the main track, and we'll go back and take a look at the 4 Bodacious Babe and the 2 Jelatash here for trainer Graham Motion. These 2 fillies both come out of the same race, and we can see the 4 Bodacious Babe. She's tracking the pace, or she's pressing from the outside on the number 2 horse. We can also see Jelatash kind of bottled up behind horses, and the rider, Joe Bravo, steadied significantly behind horses even prior to that, kind of sat down in the saddle a little bit. It just looked like she never was settled behind horses. She kept running off. You could see him having a really, really tough time trying to get her to settle, kind of keep pulling her back. And this was a solid performance by Bodacious Babe, who tried to run on from here. But I also thought it was a very good performance from Jelatash to just keep grinding out a run from off the pace after all of that early trouble.
Yeah, I'm glad. After watching it, I'm glad I have this horse on my ticket. I don't have it on top. I did go with Bodacious Babe, but I wouldn't leave that horse off the ticket. That's number 2, Jelatash.
We have some first-time starters in here, and one of them is the 5 Better Not Blink for Todd Pletcher, a horse you use on your ticket.
Yeah, this is the $850,000 daughter of Hard-Spun, debuting, as you mentioned, for Todd Pletcher. Series of stamina-enhancing workouts showing at Palm Beach Down. Tutsa Cree, she's got Lasix, John Velasquez. The workouts are not fast. You know, it looks like they have her, training consistently, and we'll see how she runs. We learned a couple of times yesterday not to leave Todd Pletcher off the ticket. That one time we were right, a couple of times we were wrong.
And you have to pay attention to the board, too. And yesterday the board was wrong. We saw a first-time starter for Todd Pletcher by Tappet going off at even money. The horse took early money, took late money. It was a gorgeous animal and did not pan out. He ran very poorly. So something to take note of, the 5 Better Not Blink. You have to pay attention to the board. But the 8 Karina, I thought, was one to perhaps use by Medaglia d'Oro out of India, who was actually, the mare won the Cotillion. She was pretty speedy early, and that's often something that I look for. A lot of times we see horses have a tendency to be a little bit more precocious with kind of a fast pedigree on the bottom side.
Yeah, you had that happen yesterday. Horse ran real well. The 3 horse in that race had a big price in there. And, it's Kieran McLaughlin. I couldn't separate it. I put, we're locked up to 3 selections. I wish I could have had 4 or 5 in this race.
Okay, that's races 1 through 6. We talked about the early pick 5, so then we're going to talk about the pick 6 and the late pick 5 as well. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Now taking a look at the pick 6, the Rainbow 6, the $2.5 million carryover today. And I did come up with a little ticket, $64.80, and what a race to kick it off. I could have used maybe 4 horses. I think the favorite in here is a little bit dubious, but 2, 9, 11 will do it for me. 5, 6, 9 for race 8, and then race 9 using 3 horses, just using 2 horses in race 10, race 11, 2, 4, 9, and capping it off with the 2 and the 10 in race 12. That race, you either have an opinion or you don't have an opinion whatsoever, because that is a very wide open race. I'm just trying to keep the ticket affordable with the final race, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get to it. Race 7, though, does start us off 6 furlongs onto the main track. The 11, Venezuela Success, is taking the steep plunge from technically maiden special weight company to the 12,500 tag today on the dirt.
Yeah, I got a little bit of story with this horse. As you mentioned, dropping to the main track at the $12,500 level, wearing blinkers, sat off a slow pace last time out, bumped hard at the 5/16 pole, faded to finish last, was against $30,000 maidens on the turf, but that race turned out to be a key race where 4 horses came out and won their next start. So it was a good race. This horse got bopped around a little bit, it backed up, finished last, dropping to the main level. Lots of little questions here, but class-wise fits, but shaky call.
Yes, this is kind of a sink or swim type of proposition, and you don't want to single this horse by any means in the pick 6. The 9, Indie Artist, though, this horse has had a lot of chances, 26 chances actually, to find the winner's circle, and hasn't done it yet. But he does have a tendency to finish second a lot, so that's where I put him.
Yeah, I wrote my analysis hoping the 27th time is the charm. Maybe the turn back from 7 to 6 furlongs will help his cause this afternoon to get off the duck here and get that first win. We'll see what happens with that.
Beyond those two, I opt for the 2, Sky Guy, who's technically taken a drop in class from maiden $50,000 company. Hasn't shown real any talent on the main track, but the class relief will speak for itself. The 4, Go Salvatore Go, is one you use, who definitely figures to be close to the pace.
Yeah, give it one more go at this level and distance. He chased that pace last time out, weakened to finish 5th, so a tough race, wide open affair. The 11 on the turf to dirt angle, maybe that's the way you want to go, but once again, we'll tell you, if you can go deeper in that first leg, you might want to.
It's tough. It's kind of a crapshoot there in the first race. We'll move to the race 8 on the card. This does kick off the 50-cent late pick 5 furlongs on the turf for this open $16,000 condition. So take us through your ticket.
Let's show you my ticket now for the late went a little deeper here, $54, but I'm only going too deep in here with the 2 commish and the 5 I Won to Win. And then you see 3 horses in the 10th race, just 2, 3 in the 3 for a $54 ticket. I think it's I could not find a single like I did in the early pick 5. Tried to, but I just didn't have the I couldn't find one.
Okay, well, the 5 I Won to Win for trainer Jamie Ness does figure to be part of the pace scenario. Will he get a little bit of competition on the front end with the 4 Nito? And I thought that it could potentially be a pretty decent pace and maybe set up for a horse that sits right off the pace. You have one of them with the 2, the commish, who you really like. A nice price at 12-1 on the morning line.
Yeah, this one was really sharp sprinting on the Saratoga turf last summer. That was at 5.5 furlongs. Now turning back to 5/8 of a mile. Went up, set the pace, faded to finish 6, going a mile last time out. Ramon Moya has Jose Caraballo in the saddle. He's known to get horses interested early. I'm going off those sprint races at Saratoga. So to me, it proves this horse can sprint on the turf. You got an aggressive rider. I hope I can get 12-1.
My only concern is, what was his excuse 2 starts back?
Right.
I know he did break out at the start,
Right.
and he probably had that bit of that as an excuse, but he didn't run on from there. And maybe he's a horse that, if it doesn't start at 5 furlong sprints, if
Right.
it doesn't start off well, it usually doesn't end well. So maybe that is the excuse. And I'm not knocking this horse because he is a price. He's 12-1, and one that you probably want to respect there. The horse that I thought to use into the pick 6 and obviously those late races is the 9, Frankie's Trigger for Safi Joseph Jr. He has a tough outside post, I do believe, but it looks like a horse that has kind of improved in the past several starts. Last time out, he did face open company for the first time, and it just seems like a horse that fits the flow of the race if the pace potentially does fall apart.
Yeah, it looks like a suspect early pace in here, so I put him on my ticket for those exact reasons, and we both used the 5 I Won to Win, previous winner from Jamie Ness. Turf winner, should say.
The 6, Fear the Falcon, quickly for Marcial Navarro, does take a cut back in distance. So you and I both have kind of the same idea here. Horses cutting back from the mile, which
Right.
we think might prefer the 5 furlongs
Right.
distance. This is a wide open field, and it's tough. I just used the 3 horses in the pick 6, and you only used 2.
Right.
But you could make a case for several horses in here.
Absolutely, but you got to keep your ticket into that certain level. You know, we can't put $275 ticket out.
Well, we could, but I don't think it would go down very well. Race 9, maiden special weight, 7.5 furlongs onto the turf course. And we have a replay of Sky My Sky, who is 2-1 on the morning line. And the 7 Sweet Tapper comes out of that race as well. So we'll take a look at the start here and really pay attention to the 7 Sweet Tapper, because she does not get off to a great start whatsoever. She breaks very slowly. She has the rest of the field in front of her, and yes, she does settle kind of in the back of the pack here. She does make a little bit of a wide trip here, but she looks to me that she was running on, and I thought it was a good performance from both of these horses. But the discrepancy that you're probably getting odds is you have to respect the 7 Sweet Tapper, because I do think that she would have been more involved if she did get off to a cleaner break. But a good closing run by the 2 in there, Sky My Sky. They try to meet up again. The reason why I think that the 7 is going to turn the tables, though, is because you look at Sky My Sky and the 2-turn race on the main track. She showed speed and she faded. Now she has to prove that she can stretch out to 2 turns on the turf, whereas I think Sweet Tapper has more potential to improve with the 2 turns.
Yeah, I mean, I put Sky My Sky on top of the ticket. You know, as you mentioned, beating 3/4 of a length, going 5 furlongs. But it is a daughter of Bernardini, and I thought Bernardini's would love this distance. So, you know, off that performance last time out, going back and seeing the 7, not only what you showed him, but also got pushed out a little bit in the stretch. Besides that, so this one can run well. A horse I did not use on my ticket, I'm talking about the 7, so maybe I have to go back and do some adjustments. But we're not too much of an agreement here, except with the 1, and that is Sky My Sky that you have on your ticket somewhere.
Yes, and looking at the 9, Run to the Beat. This is a horse I left out of the pick 6, but does have the pedigree to run well for trainer Malcolm Pierce.
Yeah, she's a daughter of Scat Daddy, debuting for Malcolm Pierce. A series of solid work showing on the Palm Meadows turf course, which I think is always a key angle. Pierce, he's really strong with first-time starters. He's up there over 30%. Luis Saez in the saddle. So if you go off those statistics, the workout pattern at Palm Meadows on the turf, I think this horse can run well. I don't know what he is on the morning line, a 10-1 on the morning line.
The 10-1 on the morning line does have the pedigree. The 10, Annabella Princess for Gustavo Delgado, had a good day yesterday. This is a horse who showed some speed, stretching out to the mile last time out. She set pretty decent early fractions, and I thought her hand was a bit forced because she was dueling on the inside. Maybe if they can get her to settle a bit kinder now on the cut back to 7.5, she could figure to be 1. But another race that I think the class here might speak for itself between the 1 and the 7, and perhaps those are the 2 to really focus on if you're trying to dwindle your ticket down.
Yeah, and the only one I want you to take a look at 15-1 is the 3 Veil, daughter of Hat-Trick, you know, from the Shug McGahee barn with Jose Lascano in the saddle. Horse you might want to add on your Super or your Pick 5 ticket or something like that. It's a 15-1 in the morning line getting Shug. You might want to throw that one in.
A very nice price. We'll move on to the 10th race, an open 6,250 claiming event, 6 furlongs on the main track. And can Super See Me do it? Can we see him get back to continue his speed on the front end and take the field gate to wire? Now, he's a horse that could run well on the turf. He's a horse that could run well on the dirt as well, and he could very easily wire the field. If he doesn't, it's anybody's game. Yeah,
he's returning to his favorite surface. So we got a horse for course angle here. 4 races on the Gulfstream main track with 3 wins. He's dropping back to the 62.50 level after setting the pace, as you mentioned, against 16 condition claimers, going 5 on the turf. I think this is his spot. They said, let's get back to do what he does best and see if he can do it. We both have him on top of our ticket.
Is he trustworthy enough to single, though?
Well, I know he wasn't for you. You were thinking about it this morning. I don't know if he is either. I would not.
So you used the 6 Duncan Bendon here, who did get the victory against similar company 2 starts back, stepped up to a very tough field last time out, perhaps one to respect. Duncan Bendon is in better form than my second selection, the 9 Buongiorno Johnny.
Yeah, you know, Duncan Bendon, he's dropping to this level after his 2-race win streak ended, as you mentioned. A brief interest last time he faded. This looks like his spot, too.
Okay, race 11 on the card. We'll move on to this very nice allowance optional claiming event, 1 mile and 3/16 on the turf. And we'll take a look at the 9, or excuse me, we'll take a look at a race that Khazaaliya does come out of, and the 2 More Than a Warning. Most recently, this allowance optional claiming event. We have the 3 Khazaaliya, who was heavily favored there. We also have the 10 More Than a Warning, and I thought Khazaaliya got a perfect trip. She might have been a little bit wide going into that final turn, but actually More Than a Warning was even wider. And look at the energy that we see from the 10 horse closing from off the pace. She zooms past Khazaaliya, and I thought a very solid performance. She was even a little bit wide going into that final turn. I think she's poised for a very big race. She does draw the rails today. She should be able to get a ground-saving trip. I prefer her over Khazaaliya, who you're going to get a much shorter price on.
Yeah, definitely. And I went to the 9, who you have in second on top of your ticket, and that's Jellicle Ball. 6 beating only a length in the Grade 2 Lake George. In her last first start, in North America, will be treated with Lasix in her first race since finishing 7th in the Grade 3 Boiling Springs at Monmouth in September. Grand Motion, 4-year-old working consistently at Palmettos. We got a stat from, don't we?
We do, with similar fillies coming in off of these 180-plus day layoffs. I thought this was a very telling stat. 6 for 20, 30%, 60% in the money with first-time Lasix on the turf, a positive ROI. This stat, it just kind of speaks volume. She holds the class over the rest of the field, in my opinion. She's been facing tougher. She's done well so far, and with those types of stats, she's one you have to definitely respect.
You know, earlier on, we both talked about the number 4, Liz, and we added it to our ticket because of the way the pace might set up with this horse.
Yes, and you have a couple of scratches in here. The 3 Indian Starlight was one. I don't think VV Goodnight would have been technically close to the pace, so Terry's Big Heart was a long shot. But a big scratch of the 3 Indian Starlight, who figured to be part of the early pace. This mare is fast, the 4 Liz. And you think about it, Paco Lopez, he's a very good gate rider. He's a very good speed rider, and if we see the turf play the same way as it did yesterday, he could very well steal this on the front end.
Yeah, he's been running at 5 furlongs and 6 furlongs on the turf and dirt, now stretching out to this mile and 3/16. He's got to go.
I see no other option. She just has so much early speed. The biggest question is, can she get the distance? She has gotten the mile before, but she's never been this far before. So that's the key. She's either going to take the field gate to wire, or we could see the pace completely fall apart to some of these stalkers or closers. All right, we'll move on to the 12th and final race on today's program, a maiden $35,000 event, a mile on the turf course, and we both land on a nice long shot. The 2 Geschnell, 12-1 on the morning line, class dropper coming out of some key races.
Yeah, I just thought this was actually my long shot play of the day, and I'm glad to see you're in agreement with me. Was facing considerably tougher on the turf before the layoff. Drops to this level today to get the call. Dennis Manning ready to him for the return. Really solid 4 furlong work over the track, or 5 furlong work over the track. It's a bullet work. So this horse looks like he could be spotted perfectly in the nightcap.
And he really, I think you have to work off of his race back in December, on the 5th of December. The turf did have a little bit of moisture in there, but it was, that was off the track.
Right.
You have to work off of his past 2 races, and his race 2 starts back. He did chase. He was kind of in the mid-pack, and then he faded. But that was one of the toughest races that we have seen so far at the meet. We saw Inspector Lindley come back and run well. We saw Giant Run step up against Stakes Company and run a huge race. Those are stakes quality horses. So you're taking a maiden special weight with stakes quality horses and dropping in for a $35,000 tag. You would only think he'd move up.
Yeah, I'm just saying the general Colonel Lindley raced that race. Just seems everybody that ran in the race has come out and run well.
The 11 Crafty Colonel has to work out a trip from that way outside post position, but does have Javier Castellano in the saddle, a horse you use. And second, I left him off of the pick 6, but this is one, if I were going to use one more horse in the final leg of the sequence, I would have used him.
Yeah, he's stepping up to the $35,000 level. He responded last time out to the addition of blinkers with that improved second place finishes against $25,000 maidens going a mile in the 16th. Looks like a lateral move to me. You mentioned the connections. Don Chantino, Javier Castellano in the saddle again. I just think this is a logical horse, and I don't see the jump up from 25 to 35 as a concern.
The 10 Appa, first-time starter for trainer Jane Sabelli, is one I really do like the 2 Geshnell in here, so I'll back myself up with a horse that has some pedigree on the bottom side. Nabla was the mare. She was actually 5 for 7 on the turf. She was very successful on the turf, and this is a horse who is a horse by the name of Walks Like a Duck, who made just about $420,000 on the turf. So there's a little bit of turf pedigree on the bottom side, a nice minute workout there, 5 furlongs at Palmetto, so perhaps this one is well spotted. It is kind of tough from that outside post, especially a maiden claimer debuter. Not always the highest statistics for the Jane Sabelli barn, but she's been known for some upset maiden winners.
Absolutely. I watch everything she sends to the post because she's pretty good with first-time starters, too. So.
Well, that's races 1 through 12, and a tough sequence in the pick 6. Once again, we have a carryover of $2.5 million. We also have a nice carryover to kick us all off. That super high 5 in race 1, just shy of $4,500, and a good betting race as well. That's enough talking for us here, Ron. We're going to take a quick break, and Larry Colmus, he's waiting in the wings. He's rolling his eyes, too. I think it's time we go. Yeah. Thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today. We'll be back for races 1 through 12. Best of luck on today's card.